Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, it's Ebro, Laura, and Rosenberg. Some special guests today. Our friend from New York City, Lin-Manuel, Miranda, and Eisa Davis from Oakland, California have teamed up for something very special. Is it called Warriors? Is that what it's called?
Yes, sir.
It's out right now on Apple Music. Tell us how this is an adaptation of the movie we all grew up on.
Yes, this is an adaptation of the movie we all grew up on. I don't know how you saw it, New York. I saw it on my friend's older brother's VHS as an unsupervised child of the 1980s. I know it was like a VHS and not WPIX because the WPIX has certain words bleeped out.
Right. And you heard the words.
Oh, I heard all the words.
You heard the words. Yeah.
And you know, I mean, that's 4 years old is too young to see that movie. But like, I went back to it. Oh, it's probably my most watched movie. It was my mental map of New York before I really understood where I lived. I knew I lived closer to the Bronx than I did to where the Warriors lived. And so I've grown up with it all my life. And then, you know, when I was done with Hamilton, when I finally came up for air, I was thinking, like, what do I want to do next?
And this is how many years is that process before you came up for air for
this is probably like 2017, 2018.
So
like, because I was in it for a year and we did the mixtape and like we were setting up the show. Like, it was a lot.
So several years.
Several years.
Hamilton,
yeah, exactly. And then and it was sort of like Inside Out. You know how like inside the kid's brain, there's like Friendship Island. There was like a whole Warriors Island in my brain.
Right.
And my brain was like, this is the next thing. And so it took me a couple of years to get the rights. I knew I needed someone smarter and cooler than me to write it with me. And I thought of Eisa. Eisa and I met way back when Passing Strange and In the Heights were like the only black and brown musicals off Broadway in the late aughts. And so we've been friends ever since. And so she came, we started writing together at the top of 22.
Yeah.
That's pretty quick.
I gotta say, for the audience tuned in right now, we have been privileged enough with Lin-Manuel Miranda that when In the Heights was just like, you know, getting to, I think it was off Broadway.
No, it was previews.
Was it previews?
We got to see, yeah.
When you came up and sat with Angie Martinez.
Yes.
And we were all like, yo, there's a Broadway play about the Heights. We gotta go. And everybody went. But it was also at a time when we didn't really even think about seeing ourselves on Broadway. Right? Fast forward, you have now brought In the Heights, obviously Hamilton, and woven New York City and hip hop into both of those things. And then now this.
Yeah.
Is this on that same trajectory? Are we at the early stages of that, or we're speaking out of turn?
I don't know. I mean, listen, I think what's exciting is that, like, as of today, you can hear the thing we made. This is not the cast album of the thing we made that you got to go spend money to go see. Like, we spent all this time to make this album, to make a movie in your heads when you listen to these 26 tracks. You know, Eisa and I are both theater artists, so we would probably love to explore this down the line. But it was freeing to make it as an album first, because first of all, you can hear the caliber of artists we got here. Most of these people would never do 8 shows a week. It was hard enough getting them in a studio for an afternoon or a couple of days.
Some of the features.
I mean, we've got representing each borough of the Bronx. We've got
Chris
Rivers representing the Bronx. We've got Nas representing Queens. We've got Cameron representing Manhattan. Ghost and RZA representing Staten Island. Busta Rhymes representing Brooklyn. And that's just the first song on the album. That's just to like represent that montage of all the gangs coming up to the Bronx for the conclave.
Of course, is also our DJ.
She's the DJ voice throughout the whole
thing.
She's
the Lynn Thigpen.
Exactly.
She killed that.
Voice.
Right?
Yeah.
Talking to the boppers.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was so. It was now in the movie, and obviously, hopefully, people watching this have seen the movie. Maybe we.
Listen, I didn't. Truth be told, I didn't grow up in New York. My familiarity with Warriors was samples on rap records.
Right. Same with me.
And then it was playing at the Nighthawk 5 years ago, or whatever, pre-pandemic, and I went and saw it for the first time.
Oh, wow.
And you're like, that's what that's from. Oh, that's what that's from.
Like,
Can you dig it?
So there's definitely people. There's definitely people that
Right.
know the references but haven't seen the movie.
Yeah, you go to see the Warriors play. Warriors come out to
play.
play.
When Old Dirty said it, Warriors come out and play.
Yeah.
I was like, I don't know.
Or when Common went, it wasn't us, it was them.
It was them.
So yes, to answer that, Ebro, I think a lot of people watching now have not seen
Or
it. And should just go see it.
Can you
dig it? I did the job role. Why did I do that? Can you dig it? Yeah. But so, and a lot of this movie, when we saw it took place in the Bronx. I mean, there was the flashing of all of the gangs getting on the
starts in the
train.
Bronx,
Starts
yeah.
in the Bronx,
Yeah.
right?
Well, we start in Coney, and then we go up to the Bronx.
Got it. Okay.
And then they
Right?
got to fight their way back.
Then they gotta fight their way back. Lynn and Eisa, talk us through writing. I mean, Hamilton was so dense in the writing and rapping and the whole thing. But here, this is musically capturing Latin culture, some hip hop, Caribbean culture. All of that is all in this music. Talk about melding that together.
Yeah, I mean, we really talked about all the fun about writing about New York is you can never get tired of writing about New York because there's a million New Yorks inside New York. And when you go to the late 70s New York, when this movie was filmed and when it came out, there's also all these amazing subcultures coming up at the same time. So, Eisa, I'm going to tag you in so you can talk about it.
Yeah. I mean, of course, what we had to have was Puerto Rican salsa, right?
Yeah, because
In the
Fania is
Bronx,
happening at this time.
right?
Yeah.
And we had to also make sure that we had just like some really strong rock happening,
Punk, because the punk scene
the
was strong.
punk scene, of course. And then what we did, of course, was try to look at 1979 from a 2024 lens. So, we've got some R&B in there that's a little bit pushed further into the 90s and
That's a fun- that's a fun
right?
moment.
The
That's a
sort
very-
of romantic
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
peak
It's
of the boy band.
The boy band to end all boy bands.
Right.
Like New Edition all the way to K-pop and back. Yeah.
And we've got some straight metal in there,
Right.
I mean, it really bounces all over the place. We've got a really great number called Quiet Girls that really gets at ballroom culture.
Which is also popping off in the late 70s.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean,
I
so
know. I
it's
saw,
all
I
in
saw
there.
Billy Porter is a part of it. I'm a big fan.
Oh, come on. We all are. It's incredible what Billy does.
He's
No, his talent is
Beyond,
remarkable.
right?
It's beyond.
Yeah.
His singing ability, his acting, just all of it.
Now, what was the conversation? I don't know how much you guys are revealing, how much you want people to just hear when they turn on the album. But the lens is different with this version of Warriors, and it's such an important women's story.
Right. That was Lynn's idea to switch the Warriors gang to women and also to make Cyrus, who's, bringing everybody up to the Bronx for that peace meeting, that truce meeting, to make Cyrus a woman. Of course, that's Ms. Lauryn Hill.
Yeah, we had no plan B for Miss Lauryn Hill.
Yeah, tell the story of getting Lauryn.
So I was at a social function a little over a year ago where I met her manager, and I'm making conversation, and I said, we had a Lauryn quote in Hamilton that we didn't use for Broadway because I was made to understand there's no way we'd clear the quote. It was like a section in one of the Cabinet songs where they have Jefferson and Madison being like, you might win some, but you just lost one. Right. And the manager, Suzette, turns to me and goes, well, Lauryn loves Hamilton. We would have cleared that.
And I went, when he told me this, I told him Laura and Shawnee saw Lauryn Hill at
When
Hamilton.
they went,
So
right?
you want to laugh? Shawnee and I got tickets. Thank you, Lynn.
Yeah.
Thank you. You and your team hooked us up. So Shawnee and I go because everyone else had seen it. So when we get there, it was very white. It was very the audience was very white. So
Yeah.
Shawnee and
It
I
was
were
very
just
expensive
looking
at that point.
around, and we see one black person. Yes, and I was like, Shawnee, you know who that is? And then we realized it was Lauryn Hill. And we were freaking out.
Yeah.
We were geeking out. We even waited to we tried to say hi, but we didn't want to disturb her after she walked out. We were just like, hi.
So it's a fact. She does.
She saw the
like
show.
Hamilton.
She was there.
She would have cleared the lyrics.
Amazing moment.
Yeah, she would have cleared the lyric. And I was like, forget that lyric. We have another thing we're working on. And then it was really just texting Suzette for like a year. And she had a busy year this year. She was touring Miss Education, the anniversary of Miss Education. And then one day we get a text from Suzette, and it's just a Dropbox. And it's got all these vocal files and all these
crazy.
background vocals that she added. Wow. But we just flipped out because we had no plan B, and we were getting close to like drop date to make the vinyl.
Yeah.
And we're like,
So everything else
And
is
it was
filled in,
noted,
basically.
Lauren wasn't
Yeah.
late. She
No.
was on time.
100%.
Delivered.
She was
always
in
on time.
But
to,
what
to
was
paraphrase John Rule again.
what was so wild for me is that I came up as a hip hop journalist. So I actually interviewed Lauryn and the Fugees, like back in the day when I worked for Rap Sheet magazine. And like, I mean, right? That takes you back, doesn't it?
Really
right?
does.
And like, I remember meeting her, you know, at a concert, like back early days, like 94. And also she was in a show called Club 12, which was one of the first hip hop theater shows. It was a hip hop version of Shakespeare's Twelfth Night. And I went to see that when I first came to New York. And it's just full circle to be able to have her voicing Cyrus on this album. And her vocals are just off the chain. Like the runs that she does, all of the background vocals that she produced and put on this track, it's just...
So Eisa, talk to us about working with Lin, our guy Lin. I mean, this guy's a handful. He's a handful now. He's got a lot of ideas that don't. Well, it's like when he flips the switch, the ideas fly, right?
They do. Lin just pulled his chair away. I love that. I mean, you know, it's really wild because, of course, we've had this friendship, and I've just admired his work as an artist, you know, for so many years now. But then now we have this relationship where we literally can finish each other's sentences. You know, like we have clearly kind of, you know, joined our brains, our neurons are just kind of locked in. In this process of writing Warriors. And, you know, I just have to say that, you know, something that was very important, I think, to Lin in asking me on this ride was, again, to just sort of really disrupt the kind of patriarchal inertia, you know, that can be there. And, you know, there's a lot of sexism.
I don't know big words like patriarchal inertia, but I 100% co-sign.
You encouraged it.
And, you know, and just the generosity that he has shown me as a collaborator, it's been really, really beautiful, you know, like he and his whole family, you know, Vanessa and the kids, they've just all welcomed me into their home. And he just like sprinkled some little fairy dust on me and was just like, let's go. Let's do this together, you know, and make something that neither of us could make on our own.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. Like, you know, I had seen this movie when I was 4. The thing is written in stone tablets in my head. She had never seen it, so she came to it with a lot of fresh ideas for it. You know, the other thing she brought to it that I think is so important is that, like, Warriors is existing around the same time that hip-hop is coming into its own.
Correct.
And Eisa really infused it with, like, out of the ashes of this peace summit going wrong is the birth of hip-hop. And that's something that we kind of wanted to thread through the whole piece, that, like, something is being born out of this tragedy that happens 10 minutes into the movie. Right. Yeah. And keeping that hope alive throughout it. She found a really inventive way to do it within the structure of it that I think was always there in the movie. And, you know, so I feel like it's best of both worlds. I feel like it's a fresh look at Warriors, and it's also a love letter to people for whom Warriors is their favorite movie, as it is mine.
And I think, too, you know, for people who have fallen in love with hip-hop, maybe they haven't seen the movie, people do forget that part of the creation of hip-hop was around gangs not wanting to be violent with each other.
And that's it. I mean, you know, I don't know if Walter Hill, who directed the film, knew that there was that very important truce meeting in 1971 on Hoe Avenue in the Bronx that was led by Benji Melendez. And what's heavy of the Ghetto Brothers, right? And, you know, he was really about, let's move this gang into becoming a community organization that is peaceful and is about making music. And, you know, and then, of course, the birth of hip-hop officially is in 1973. But something that's really interesting about that original meeting is that there were a lot of girls and women who were in those gangs at the time, in, you know, gangs that were led by men for the most part. And at that meeting, they were told to sit in the back. And there were some all-women, all-girl, all-femme gangs who were not even allowed to come into that meeting and were kept outside in the cold. And so in a lot of ways, what I feel like we get to do with this album is flip that. And it's a vindication for all of those women who were in those gangs and saying, no, you have this voice and you are going to be the ones who fight your way back, defending yourself and keep this dream of peace alive.
Well, and it also reminds me that as much as we love to remix what New York City is, you know, there was a lot of gangs in this town. right?
Oh, yeah.
And it came out of rubble, and it came out of immigrants and hardships and people trying to figure out ways to protect themselves and protect their communities. And I know you see your Starbucks and your Whole Foods and all your things you got going on now, but there was a time not long ago, right? Like in people's lives where it wasn't.
And I think that one of the reasons I love this movie, and I think this movie continues to resonate all these years later, is the movie doesn't judge its characters. It doesn't go, oh, look at this, and wring its hands.
Right.
It goes, we're just with them. We're with them. Everyone goes to the Bronx for peace. Peace is shattered, and now they got to fight their way home, and we're just with them. It's just like a very human thing to want safety and security and to leave your house knowing you're going to come back home again at the end of the night.
And that's what it's really, the whole thing's all about.
Yeah.
Now, are you guys, I have to imagine you want people, the expectation, the hope would be, is that a lot of people will come to this because of their commitment to Hamilton, right? Hamilton is such a big part of people's lives, right?
Yeah,
There are kids-
internationally.
And there are kids like who were raised, like my niece and nephew knew every word to Hamilton when they were 6, right? The hope had, your kid, right? The hope is, I would imagine, because I sat there and listened to the whole thing, and what I thought was it's very much like a musical. You want people to sit and listen to the whole thing.
That's right.
If you, do you agree that if you try to jump in and grab a single, you'll be failing on this project.
There's a reason we haven't released any singles or
Right.
videos. We want everyone to
Yeah.
take the ride. And, I always say, when you're broke, every album's a concept album. Every cast, like when I was a kid and my parents had the albums of shows they'd seen, I didn't see the shows, but I would have to imagine the through line between the songs that were on the album. And so, our hope is folks just listen to the whole thing in order, and they're going to have favorites. And obviously, we have so many like music stars on the album that some people are going to come because they love Steven Sanchez or they
Right.
love, Shensia
Dracula,
or Kim
yeah.
Dracula, but
Or
that
Lauryn Hill, Lauryn
but
Nas, Ghostface, whatever.
exactly,
Yeah.
but that they stay for the whole story.
How'd you land on my boy Chris Rivers, the son of Big Pun? For
The one and only son of Tony Montana.
Exactly. The son of Tony. Yeah. How did you land on Chris though?
Beautiful.
I mean, he's just brilliant, and I think he's carried the torch for the rigorousness of his dad's lyrics so beautifully in his career. And, we're looking for an MC to represent each borough for that opening number. And like, who better for this like 79 through a 2024 lens to be the first voice you hear, the first hip hop voice you hear on the album than Chris, who's
But he's also got a very cultural voice.
Yeah.
Right? Like his natural voice is something where you're like, yo, this dude's from the Bronx.
that dude's from the Bronx.
And so,
Yeah.
so you weren't able to decide between Ghost and RZA, huh? The fight was too hard for who
didn't-
represents Staten Island the most.
It's
Right, and
such a
even RZA.
collective. I
Right,
would have
RZA
written a
was
line
like,
for each
meth,
line.
yeah.
He was like, "You want to add meth to this?" I was like, "It's only 16 bars. I don't want everyone to like have But like it was unthinkable to have less than 2 people for Woo because it's a collective, right? And it's just a matter of like which Voltron heads emerge at the mic at any given time.
Yes.
Now it turned out awesome. I think people are absolutely going to love this album. It's really special.
Well, and if your kids haven't seen Warriors, sometimes it's hard for me to get my daughter to watch older things. Like Mary Poppins, I showed her You're Mary Poppins, right? And she was into it, but I was like, let's watch the original. She got through it, but it was... when things are older, it's tough. It's
right,
tough.
when the visual quality looks different.
Right, and the visual quality looks different. They notice it, but I'm gonna.
My kids are begging to watch Warriors because they love these songs, and they're not old enough. Like,
What do you
How
think the
old are your
age
kids?
is? What do you think the
My-
age is for?
I think when he turns 10, he can watch.
So
it.
my daughter's 10.
Right.
Yeah, okay.
She should
I
be
think
good.
she should be fine. My 6-year-old is going to be freaked out because I was fucking freaked out.
So yeah, I'm gonna watch Warriors with her, and then we're gonna listen to it.
I think also this album and Hamilton, and In the Heights, but this album is just another example too. Like, there's so much complaining in culture about DEI and the remixing of history and nothing's what it used to be and blah blah blah. We don't spend enough time celebrating how cool you can make things when you just try to look at some other perspectives and do something like, oh no, this wasn't originally a women's story, but it's really cool as a women's story. And I just wanted to like celebrate you guys for that. And I hope people really enjoy that because the complaints about all of that happening is really loud. I don't think we celebrate the wins of it enough.
100%.
There's a purpose to doing this, and you feel it on the album. I'm like, oh, these are voices I haven't heard before.
Yeah.
Yeah, and also, I mean, when I look at who is on this album, that's the world that I live in. That's my regular world. I don't know why anyone would complain about that.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it was, and actually, complaining's part of the recipe and part of the reason for the flip. One of the things that was happening out of 2016 was Gamergate. I don't know if you remember this, when like toxically online bros were just like doxing women who were interested in video games online. They would put up their addresses, and it was like
how dare you women be a part of our
how
video
dare
game?
you women like video games? Here's their home address.
Whoa.
And when I saw that happening, this is like 2015, somewhere around there, I remember being like, that's such a fucking Luther move. Like Luther shoots Cyrus, points at the Warriors and goes, they did it.
Right.
Do with that what you will. And that was the beginning of like my flipping the Warriors to a female gang, because when you make the Warriors a female gang, but still the same things happen, every plot point is made like interesting to write about. So hopefully what we have is like this love letter to the original movie that isn't, the original movie is there for the fans. I'm the biggest fan of the original movie, but it's our love letter to that movie. And it's, in a way that's totally different, that doesn't make you go, because sometimes when I'm like at an adaptation of a movie, I'm like, all right, when's the scene when they do this? And when do they say this line? Whereas like doing this totally scrambles that and makes you feel like you're seeing a new story for the first time.
And by the way, obviously, The Warriors is a fictional story, okay?
Yeah.
So it could have been anyone.
Yeah.
And there really were women gangs.
Right.
Like...
Well, and
Sife's mom was the warlord of a gang. He loves this. Like, she was a Puerto Rican in the Bronx at that time.
Yes.
She was literally the warlord. Like this. So it just happened to be because men are the ones that tell stories that we're telling all the stories that the Warriors were men. It could have very
Rosenberg.
easily
Speak.
been women.
Yeah, no.
So like, it's just another
well, guess
example.
what? Lauryn Hill led her little crew too. She was the leader of her.
By the way, facts. You say that based on facts.
And still does to this day.
Still is to this day. Lynn, we haven't had you up here. I talked about this in person, but I want to ask while we have you on camera, your run on Curb Your Enthusiasm as heel Lin-Manuel.
That was my heel turn. That was my Dom Mysterio turn.
Yeah, I don't know if either of you guys saw when he was on
saw
Curb
it,
for
yeah.
a season, but you were the biggest dick in
I was.
history.
Yeah. Well, I realized, listen, because the thing is, that show's improvised. Like, truly, he has an outline. Like, the way you end up on Curb is Larry David calls you and goes, this is what I think is going to happen. I'm going to get my fatwa lifted because I helped someone in line, and then they want you to be involved in Fatwa the musical, and I don't know how it ends, but we're going to end in a duel. And that's the pitch. And I was like, great, I'm in. Like, I'm in. Okay. But then I had to think, like, well, how can I be... Like, I can't be Susie Essman. I can't out-yell Susie Essman.
Right.
Not funnier than JB Smoove. So my kryptonite to Larry is aggressive, like passive aggressiveness. Like, I'm really nice to him to his face, and I just do the opposite of whatever he says.
Right.
So I'll be like, do you like the shirt? He was like, yeah, I like that shirt. I go, okay, we need new shirts. And so it's just
so
like, he can't quite ever like discharge his like rage at me because I'm still really nice to his face the whole time.
But it did something awesome because the Larry David character on the show, even though like he's the protagonist and he's kind of who you're rooting for, he can be such a dick that like you can't really root for him. You were such a dick that like you made him a babyface. Like you were like you really felt bad for Larry.
Yeah, it's true. It's like, oh, he can't express himself because I'm aggressively nice and doing the opposite of what he wants at all times.
Now, speaking of heels and baby faces, I'd be remiss considering the bulk of our relationship is talking about pro wrestling.
Yeah, Rosenberg and I text about wrestling a lot.
There's a lot of wrestling talk. That is all we talk about. What are you most engaged in? Is there one particular character in the business right now that you're like, you get the most joy out of watching perform?
Listen, I could list lots of heroes. I am way too into wrestling. But I'm loving Dom Mysterio's heel to super heel turn. Like, he was already over as a heel, and then he like left Rhea Ripley for Liv Morgan. And
he's even more hateable now.
And they don't even let him talk. Like, they boo so much when he talks that he has to like break into Spanish and be like, pero déjenme hablar. It is the most over I've ever seen a heel since like, the $1 Million Man was like kicking basketballs out from under kids' hands in the 80s.
So is that what you enjoy the most, though, just seeing the ability for someone to get that kind of reaction live out of people?
Yeah.
Like, as a theater performer, I have to imagine you're like, wow, that's
so
the goal.
theatrical. I mean, isn't that what you love about it?
Yeah, absolutely. And he's just also like the fact that we grew up watching him, that like Eddie Guerrero and Rey Mysterio fought over custody of him in a match.
And he was a little boy.
And he was a little boy just being like, which one's my dad? And now he's like super heel with like the
Only
mullet.
refers to his dad as a deadbeat.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
all he
And like
refers to
refers to his like
Issa's
stint.
involved in this relationship.
What'd you say?
From WrestleMania.
Yeah.
When she was like, why is he doing this to his dad? Like, what's going? Like,
So she's in it too.
Oh,
She pops in for the big
in
ones.
and out for the big ones. For the big
Wow,
ones. We don't watch
he
it.
brought me to see a little wrestling. Who is it? Was it Jade?
Jade
Cargill.
He
Oh,
was
she's
the
amazing.
one who just kind of, that was pretty dope.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, she took a spill in front of us. And we were like, oh, she's mortal.
She's mortal.
She doesn't seem mortal.
It was
but she is
really
mortal.
messy. She fell out those
Lin,
ropes. I was
Lin,
like,
speaking
whoa.
of wrestling, Moana, The Rock.
Rock.
Is so. I dressed up as Maui for my daughter's 4th birthday.
You're welcome.
It was a great time. She loved the movie. We love the film. Everybody loves the film. I see trailers for Moana 2,
Right.
which is I think like this year, Thanksgiving.
Yeah, I
or
think
something like
Thanksgiving, yeah.
that. But I heard about a live action. What's
So Tommy Kail, who directed Hamilton, is directing the live action as we speak. I went to visit the set a few weeks ago while they were filming You're Welcome. I have seen The Rock in the full Maui gear. It's not to be believed. I'll show you when the cameras go off.
Oh my God.
Because otherwise Bob Iger will just appear out of the air and snatch my phone out of my hand. No, it's amazing. And this young woman, Catherine, who's playing Moana, is 17 years old. She's incredible. I think that comes out in 26, but they're filming it right now.
So good.
And it's really special.
I've obviously I know a lot of Polynesian people who love the film.
Yeah.
But have you been able to feel that? Like, I mean, you did In the Heights. You did these movies that are like really capturing culture. This Moana film for Polynesian people really was like a rare opportunity for like to be on the main worldwide blockbuster thing. Have you been able to feel that?
Yeah, well, what's amazing is Tommy has been hiring that way. And like, so, I went to see the entire village that they built. Out of whole cloth, and like it's all of these Pacific Island folks who have never been in a movie on this scale. 150 people like in the village singing "Where You Are," and it's so it's just taking that representation to the next level
too. Like there's native language.
100%. Yeah, no, this is like the first. I think it's the first Disney movie to be translated into Samoan. And what's amazing, anytime you get to work on something like this, and you work really hard to get the representation right, is that like I can tell when people come up to me like what the thing is. Like if someone comes up to me and goes, "I'm from Colombia," I'm like, "Let's go." And they go, and if they go like, "My cousin's name is Bruno," I go, "I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry for that whole year there where their life was just blown up."
Bruno's still catching out here.
Bro,
Don't speak about Bruno.
I'm still trapped in. We talk about Bruno a lot, a lot.
I'm amazed that that's the hit. I was as surprised as anyone, and I really think it's like because of TikTok. Because when you listen to things as 10-second segments, that's 10 songs. Because everyone's got their little segment.
Bro, we watch Encanto at least every 6 months, bro. I tear up every time. It's such a great film, man.
Thank you.
I just think because my daughter is never seen a TikTok. She's gonna be 4.
Yeah,
and
she
it's
just loves
instantly the song
that Bruno
that
tune.
she literally performs. She has a whole little like routine with passion, and I'm just looking at her like, wow. But I
wild.
do think like Ebro, I do tear up each and every time, and I think my family is from Guatemala.
Yeah.
Different country. We're almost there.
Similar struggles.
Yeah, we're almost there. But I do every time I watch it, I find something like a little Easter egg that is so like unique and very Colombian.
Yeah.
And something to me that it's beautiful. It's well done. Question: do you tell your kids that when you're involved, or do you let them see it with the rest of the
my
kids?
kids don't. I have an open door policy. So my kids are on the album. Like you can actually
Okay,
hear them in the
okay,
background
yeah.
on a song
Okay.
called Derailed. There's a high-pitched scream in the background.
And that's
Frankie.
Frankie.
That's Frankie. That was a day that my kids just wouldn't leave me alone. I was like, all right, scream into this mic as loud as you can. And I like looped it and pitched it, and it's in the song. You can hear my 9-year-old whispering, "Run!" in the middle of that tune.
So they know.
So,
They're
so
connected.
by the time a movie's out, they're sick of the tunes already.
Right.
They're sick of Mufasa. I wrote the songs for the new Mufasa movie that's coming out in December. Like they're like, we're good on Mufasa. Like it's going to be catchy for everyone else in a month. But
I saw the videos of The Rock with his kids.
Hold up.
You know what I mean?
You got. I don't know if everybody's processed. I mean, Moana, Encanto, Mufasa, In the Heights. What like the songwriting capacity?
Right.
How are you doing? emoting, like, because it's dense. Like, it's a lot of work, right?
Yeah.
Like, writing like this and at this depth and so often and finding hits and, like, how talk about that part.
Can I just say, though, I mean, the thing with Lin is he is always, like, searching for the joy. So when you say, is it hard, going for the emotional depths? I mean, I think it's that you enjoy all of the stories that you're telling. And that's what you're going to do day in, day out is, like, look for that.
That's true. It's funny. I remember, like, that like YouTube series Honest Trailers where they like remix the thing and make fun of the movie in the trailer. They remixed Surface Pressure and basically they wrote as like, is Lin all right? Is he doing too much?
Right. Well, no, because it's all so magnificent, but it's also all so big, and it's also thoughtful, and it's also like cultural and important. Like, it's a lot, man.
Yeah.
You've done a lot of shit. You've done a lot of shit, bro.
Thanks, man. Yeah, well, I mean, it's funny, like, but it's again, like, that's the fun part, and I think that something that I've been lucky enough to have is like good mentors and good heroes that like teach you that you can have a stable home. Like, you don't have the suffering artist thing is a thing we all grow up with. Like, oh, you got to suffer for your art, and you got to have like a fucked up life so that you can write about the fucked up things for your art. And my heroes all like wrote about really messed up things. Like, I think about John Kander, who wrote fucking Chicago and Cabaret, two of the most nihilistic musicals you'll ever see, and like has been happily married and is just like, and like basically they teach you to like put all of the shit in the art.
Right.
And then you go home and you like hug your kids and you hug your wife and like you can, with Hamilton, like.
So it's helpful.
Yeah, it's helpful. You get to fight a war. One of the first things I told Eisa about Warriors was like, Warriors, in addition to being my favorite movie, is also all my primal New York fears in one movie. It's the wrong cop on the wrong night. It's going into the wrong block when you don't know you shouldn't be there. Right. It's getting thrown in front of the fucking train.
Yeah.
It's
Falsely
being
accused.
lost. It's like the train's not going where you expect them to go. Like, these are my go-to anxiety
Catching
dreams.
a train from Coney Island back to wherever you're going at the wrong hour.
Yeah,
You're like,
and getting to write to all that is great. Is like that's the good stuff. You're dealing with like the heightened stuff that's going on with you.
My favorite thing about and I wonder if you've gotten to observe this, Eisa. My favorite thing about Lin's life is he's one of like if you're in a I have to imagine if you're in a Hollywood room and a party of some sort and Lin's there, there's a lot of like, oh my God, it's Lin-Manuel Miranda. And I'm sorry, with all due respect, you are a huge deal in Hollywood. That's just how it is. But he doesn't live in Hollywood. He lives in New York. And you probably get called the wrong name on a regular basis and have people, any moment where you might get gassed by smelling the roses too much, you have someone going, yo,
Dude,
I know that happens to you.
I was at the DMV yesterday, Rosenberg. I was at the Express DMV on 30th to upgrade to the Real ID.
You gotta do it.
I still haven't done it. I know, I still haven't done
got till
it.
May
I'm
or
there
something,
with
right?
like my 20 pieces of like proof that I'm me. And they call my number up and the lady goes, oh, it's you. It's from the, and she's like, who is that? The lady next to him, who is that? It's Hamilton. He's Hamilton. She goes, I don't know what Hamilton is. Like, and then the lady who doesn't know who I am was like, but can I get an autograph? I was like, you don't even know who I am. And then she goes, what's your name? I'm like, I have 10 pieces of paper with my name on them proving that I am my name. Just look at my license or my passport or my bill.
Or my bill or my social security
And she's
card,
like, but I just take the pictures. I don't look at that. Stand back, please.
See? So that's why you have
I was
to stay
humbled
regular.
like literally at 3 different booths.
I love it.
And so funny, and I have the opposite experience where my ID says Angela Eisa Davis, right? Because my aunt is Angela Davis.
Wow.
So people are just like, "Oh, is that you? You know, like you seem young,
Power to the people.
right? Exactly.
You seem young.
You
look
amazing.
By the way, Angela Davis does look amazing.
I mean, yeah, she does yoga like twice a day, but like,
Yeah.
it's just wild. It's just wild because there's the life that you're living, and then there's what you're perceived as. But what's so amazing is that you get to create the art, and the art is what lives.
Were you named after her?
Yeah.
Wow.
I was named after her. Exactly.
That's so
Yeah,
interesting.
'cause
So it gave
she
you the
was
first name.
She was in jail, and my mom is her sister and named me after her.
Wow, that's so cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
And Angela Davis is still out here, bro. She's still out here.
How old is
Completely.
Angela Davis?
80.
80 years old. Wow.
Yeah, she's still out here
Bless
speaking
her.
on behalf of Palestine, you know, because, you know, she was one of the early activists that talked about how what's going on there is a representation of white supremacy on planet
I've
Earth
read her
and
stuff.
that
on it,
barometer of that.
And how did we land on Eisa? How did they go to EISA?
My mom is a copycat. And she had some friends whose daughter was named Eisa, like Ibro's daughter. And she was like, I like that name. And so she snatched it. She thought it meant little star. And there are some kinds of etymologies that say that. But of course, you know, it's most commonly like it means Jesus or it means like blessed one. Or it's like, you know, like Isaac in
In the Quran, that's what they call
Yeah,
Jesus. Yeah.
exactly.
So from the beginning, when you were named Angela Eisa Davis, did your mom immediately just be like, but we're going to call you Eisa? Or was it you over time being like, I just can't be called Angela Davis all the time? How did you...
No, I mean, nobody called me that unless it was my grandmother, you know, telling me to come in because it was dark. Angela Eisa Davis, get in here and eat your food, you know. She never sounded like that. But anyway, but no one ever called me that. It was just an honorific.
Got it.
That's beautiful.
So Eisa
Just
was your
DMV troubles like me.
Exactly.
Right. That's just DMV trouble.
That's funny. Yo, you guys are amazing. Congratulations.
Thank you.
And this watching another one of y'all's journeys is going to be fun too to see where this goes after this too. And for everybody out there, check the movie, check the
Sit
album.
down.
Yes.
Get the family together
Yes.
in the living room or on a long car ride.
Listen together.
And listen together.
The
and turn this
lyrics,
thing up.
you can read along with the lyrics. We're going to make a PDF on warriorsalbum.com so you can just read along. If you didn't get the vinyl, you can just read along with it.
And Boomer, you
Nice.
can just scroll up on your streaming service and read along with it. Right when if you don't go get the PDF, right when you just like hit the little swipey, you can see it.
Yeah.
There you
Give it
go.
up for Lin and Eisa, man.
Hey,
Thank you guys.
Thank you.